Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first BeKIN Steel meeting. The concept of BeKIN Steel was to take some of our best people and have them be a mentor to everyone, a sort of one-to-many mentorship. And the sort of background idea is steel sharpens steel, that someone who has gone before you, someone that has done more, is farther ahead on the path, can give you a lot of great insights, tips, warnings, and suggestions that can help you along your professional and perhaps your personal journey. And that's what this is about. And I've had the great fortune of meeting a lot of you, and I know personally that we have phenomenal people here in BeKIN and at Kyndryl. And so I reached out to a few people, and Alif stepped up and said, "Hey, I'd like to be the first." And he really does have a pretty amazing personal journey. And in this process, the thing that we should all recognize, right, is that who we are is made not just of our professional journey, it is our personal journeys as well. That sometimes the things that we do to grow ourselves as a person, as a human being, makes us better at our job, and vice versa. And so all of the things that make up Alif's journey, that makes him who he is what makes him this great value here within BeKIN and within Kyndryl at large. And so with that, I'll turn this over to you, Alif, and thank you so much for being our first.
No problem. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. I want to say this is an open forum. I'm a talker, and I'm also a New Yorker originally, so I can talk fast, but feel free to stop me at any time. I guess, Curtis, if you want to have them, I guess, to raise their hands, and that way you can stop me and say, hey, if they're not comfortable stopping me at any time. But
Yep.
just stop me at any time with questions, comments, anything. I'm open to stopping and starting at any point. I'm going to run through this roadmap and answer any questions and just be as open book as I possibly can.
Alif, you're all set.
All right, cool. So like Curtis was saying, it's not just about what jobs you've had, right? Step by step by step. I went from this job to this job. We're all people, and this is a people company, and it's about our personal journeys. This is a template that you can take and you can kind of build a roadmap for yourself. And it's good to actually go back and reflect and see what those pivotal points were in your life that directed you and guided you to where you go. So this was a amazing exercise for me when I did this a couple years back, and I've actually haven't updated it. So there's a lot more. It says Kyndryl, right? But we've been Kyndryl for years. So a lot has even changed and updated since that point. And I'll talk about that at the end. But let me just get into it. So first of all, I just want to tell everybody, no matter what it is that you do now, you can do anything that you put your mind to. And I'm going to show you, no matter what stage in your career you're at, no matter if you've been here 26, 28 years, or if you just came in 2 months ago. If you're doing a job now and you want to be doing something different, I'm going to show you that you can do that. It's possible, completely possible. So let's go back all the way to 1990. And yes, I'm dating myself, but that's fine because I still look young, or somewhat. So 1990, I'm a student at John Dewey High School, and I take the SATs, do very well in the SATs, and I start getting college mail. But as most college students, I want to go to college, but I don't exactly know what I want to do, don't know what path I'm going to take. Stuff is coming in on the mail all the time. I took all the college mail that came in and just kind of sat it on a shelf, sat it on a shelf, sat it on a shelf. And after about, 6 months of that, I had a pretty big stack. And my mom comes to me and says, hey, um, what are your plans for the weekend? And I said, oh, well, me and my buddies were going to go out to a movie and then we're going to do this. And she said, no, 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 no. You're not going to do any of that. You're not going to be doing anything else on any weekend until you go through that college mail. You figure out what it is that you want to do and you get some plans in place. And I was like, oh, man, really? Okay. All right. So I sat and I thought about it. And I was like, okay, what do I really want to do? What can I say that I want to go to college for and I can study for 4 years and it's not going to bore me? I'm not going to want to quit. I'm not going to want to change majors. I had always loved computers and science. And I said, you know what? I've always loved the ocean. Um, hmm, Maybe I could study the ocean. Maybe I could study oceanography. Maybe I could study marine biology or something like that. And so I went through, opened up all the envelopes, looked through all the brochures, and very few colleges at that time had marine biology or oceanography as a major. So that narrowed that stack of maybe 200 down to about 20 because there's only certain schools that had it. It's like, oh, that was easy. Knock that task out. All right, let me look through these schools and see which ones I'm really interested in. And I narrowed that 20 down to about 12. And I did that in about an hour, right? So my mom is thinking it's going to take me several weekends. And I come back, all right, mom, I'm good. What do you mean you're good? What did you do? This is serious. You got to take this. I was like, no, I thought about it. I wanted to do marine biology or marine science, and there's only certain schools that offer it, and these are the places that they are. I even took that pile and narrowed it down further. So I've done my due diligence, and these are the schools I want to apply to. She's like, okay, I'm impressed. Let me see what you got. She looked through them. She said, okay, okay, okay. Well, let me tell you a little bit of realism. Um, these schools out on the West Coast in California, I can't afford you fly you back and forth all the time. So you can just toss those in the trash and we'll narrow your list even further. So she helped me with that process. Just like, we're going to pick 4 schools and you can apply to those 4, and then you can make your decision from those 4 out of the 8 that you have left. And so I applied to a school in Maryland. I applied to a school in Bar Harbor, Maine, I believe, and then 2 in Florida. Ended up getting a really good scholarship opportunity to go to Florida Tech. So that's where I ended up. And I ended up staying there and doing a Bachelor of Science in Biological Oceanography, if you can believe that. So how did I get from there to where I am now? Let's talk about that. Any questions so far? Are we good?
No questions so far.
Okay,
One comment for me,
gotcha.
in that it is amazing how quickly something moves once you set your mind to it. Your mom's like, he's got this stack, it's going to take him forever. And he's like, I'm going to do this one thing. Boom, done. It's just true
Right.
of life.
You get that single point of clarity and bam, everything lines up, right? Okay. So while I was in school at Florida Tech, there was a lot of changes in government. There was a lot of environmental cuts, and I realized junior year that a lot of the jobs that I thought I would be able to get in the forestry department or Florida Department of Fish and Wildlife and all these other jobs that were readily available when I started, I realized, hey, those jobs are being cut. There's a lot. There's not going to be as much out there as I thought there would be. But I'm going to stick to my path. I'm going to finish this. Like I said, I wasn't going to change majors. I wasn't going to do anything else. So I graduated, and my first job out of college was working in a hardware store called Scotty's. I was doing the exact same job as kids who were still in high school. So was that disheartening to me? Yes. But you progress. It's kind of a setback, but it's like, okay, well, that's what it is for now. My upgraded job was somebody who I went to school with. She got a job straight out of college as the saltwater fish specialist at the local pet store. Now, it was a big pet store, mind you, but that was her, at least it's in my major kind of deal where I'm working at the hardware store, right? So when she left the pet store to get a quote unquote real job in science, that was my connection. Hey, I'm leaving the fish store. Do you want my position over here? Just come apply for it. I said, yeah, it's definitely an upgrade from the hardware store. So let me do that. Right. So I move over to the hardware store. So now I've got a degree in biological oceanography, but I'm really just a fish store attendant. But so it's a step in the right direction. It's closer to my major. I started applying for jobs outside of Florida. I was like, okay, well maybe it's just Florida. Maybe I need to just branch out and go everywhere. So I applied to a job in Houston, Texas. The guy was very excited to bring me on. He was like, we're willing to fly you out here for interviews and get everything going. Let's get the process moving. We're hiring 2 people every month to start filling these positions. So first month came and he said, you know what? I really wanted to bring you on, but the other hiring managers had more seniority than me. So I couldn't bring you on this month, but definitely next month it's a go. So in the background, um, my lease is coming due, to renew here in Florida. My roommate has already gotten a job, and so I'm like, well, I really can't wait another month, but okay, that's fine. He says he's gonna bring me on. I put all my stuff in storage, and I went to stay on a friend's couch. And it's like, all right, as soon as this job opens up, I'm gonna put that stuff in U-Haul, and I'm gonna travel across the country to Louisiana, or no, excuse me, to Houston at that point, and it's all gonna work out. The next month came. Once again, man, I really wanted to bring you on, but I couldn't do it. I was like, sir, that I appreciate the sentiment, but I really need to do something. So are you going to have a position for me? If not, I'm going to have to go back to New York or do something else because I've given up my apartment in hopes that this was going to work out. And he said, you know what? Um, we are hiring, but not here in Houston still this month. We're hiring in Lafayette. And I said, oh, okay, well, that's fine. Lafayette, Texas is just as good as Houston, Texas. To me, either one is, is good. He said, no, son, this is not Lafayette, Texas. There is no Lafayette, Texas. This is Lafayette, Louisiana. I said, okay, well, is it the same job? Yeah, same job. Same pay? Same pay. I was like, okay, I'm good. He said, okay, well, um, we'll get you a plane ticket. We'll fly you out here. You'll come out here for about 2 days. They'll have to do some interviewing and water testing and everything else because you'll be working offshore doing, surveying operations. And then if everything works well, we'll fly you back home and you bring all your stuff and come on. And I said, okay, earliest plane ticket you got, let's do it. So I get on the plane, I fly out there, I go through that whole issue, ordeal, fly back, pack all my stuff into a U-Haul, go across the country, and I'm set. I get out there, and it's a great job, money wise. It's a good job, science wise, but I see, and the people that I'm working with tell me because they've all been out there, 15 to 20 years, buddy, you seem like a really smart kid. You seem like you've got a lot of potential. You seem like you could be doing a lot better, not just money wise, but just career wise. If you want to have a family later, if you want to do anything um, more technical, this is probably not the place for you long term. So stay here and learn what you can learn, but we've been out here for a long time. We barely see our families. We work on a 35-day on-call schedule and we only get 5 days off. And once you get into that routine that you've gotten married, you've gotten kids, you've purchased a house, then it's hard because this is like the best paying job in this area. So it's hard once you've done that to pick up and uproot yourself and move. You got a chance now to, just save your money, do what you're going to do, and then go find what you're meant to do. It's like, because we'd love to keep you here, but this is probably not the place for you long term. And I took that advice and I said, you know what? That's good advice. That's great. Um, my grandmother had been telling me, hey, when are you going back to school? I said, Grandma, I just graduated. I graduated a year ago. I'm not going back to school. I'm going to work now. She's like, okay, that's fine. Just call me when you're ready to go back to school. I'm like, all right, Grandma. No, no worries. But she was right. And so I had to make a decision. I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to school. I am going to switch to my alternative from when I was a kid, right? I either said it was going to be science or it was going to be computers. So this was a major pivot, a major shift. But I said, you know what? I'm out here. I'm going to work as long as I need to work right here until I paid off all my undergrad student loans. Because the way that job worked, you got paid 24/7 from the time you left the office until the time you got back. So imagine, going offshore for 35 days and within the second day you're in overtime and every week it repeats. So the money was great. Used that money wisely, didn't blow it, used it all to pay off all my undergrad student loans. So I came out scot-free, debt-free, ready to go. I also said, you know what, we're working on these boats. We had, what was it? 4 full-time boats that were either 90 to 120 feet long, full-time crew, full-time chefs, full-time Cajun chefs, by the way. So you're on the boat for 24 hours a day. So you're 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, and then you've got 8 hours just to kill, doing not much of anything because you're stuck out there in the middle of the Gulf. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna spend an hour a day studying for the GMAT and an hour a day on the treadmill because I've been sitting around eating, getting fat, being lazy, doing nothing. So I was like, all right. It's really hard to even fish, and I love fishing, but it's really hard to even fish when on a boat that's going 4 knots, pulling seismic cable. So there wasn't that much activity to do. So I did that. Studied for the GMAT, got back in shape. Did that for a few months, made sure all my bills were paid off, and I said I'm going to move to Atlanta. Why? Because a bunch of my family from New York had already relocated to Atlanta. My grandmother was there, my aunt was there. I had a cousin who had just graduated from SMU and moved there, and I had a sister who was in at school at Clark Atlanta. So it's like I got enough family there that I want to move there. She was like, okay, what's my plan? How do I make that shift? And I said, okay, well, I'm a very frugal person. I'm always a very calculated person. So I said, okay, well, I want to go to Atlanta and I want to go back to school, but I just got out of all my student loan debt. I don't want to get back into debt. So I got to find a place that pays tuition reimbursement. When I go for my MBA, I want a place that pays tuition reimbursement. That was a goal of mine. And I said, and in the meantime, I'm looking through the paper, just seeing, what's out there at different companies. And Delta's carrier, ASA, was hiring flight attendants in Atlanta, and they would fly you to Atlanta for an interview. I said, yeah, that's good. So I scheduled for my 5 day off period for an interview with them. They flew me out to Atlanta for free. I asked them if they could let me stay in Atlanta a few extra days before flying back because I had some family that I wanted to see, which was true. And while I was out there, I also scheduled interviews with about 4 other companies, ADT being one of them. So I took the job at ADT. I decided to work in their call center at night, third shift. So here's the sacrifice, but I knew I would need to go to school. They paid tuition reimbursement. I worked for their call center as a supervisor at night, and then I went to school at Georgia State during the day. And that was my plan. Okay. So here I am. I'm working. Yes, I'm not getting a lot of sleep, but I was young. I could do it. And I was going to school toward my MBA. The supervisor that I had was also in the MBA program. So whenever things came up, we could chat about it. We could talk about it. He would give me projects that were related to the stuff that he knew were coming up in uh, MBA school because he was a forerunner who had gone through the process. He was about when I started at ADT, he was about 6 months from graduation. So he had taken a lot of the classes that I was taking. So he knew what was coming up, and he kind of paved the path and paved the way for me. Great guy. So it's always important to find a mentor, to find somebody like Curtis was saying, who's blazed that path before you. So I did that. But things happen, things changed. What happened with ADT, beyond my control, was ADT decided, hey, Atlanta's too expensive. We're going to shut down all our operations here in Atlanta. We're going to move everybody out to Boulder that wants to go to Boulder. Um, and I didn't want to go to Boulder. I was settled. I was back around family for the first time in a long time. I was in the middle of my MBA, and I did not want to uproot and make that change. So I did fly out to Boulder. I helped them do the transition, and then I came back. So I stayed with them as long as I could. I went to work for a partner company of ours. Um, there was a company called MSC, which made a product. Is there a question? No. Okay. There was a company called MSC, which made a product called Car Cop, which is very similar to Cadillac's OnStar, right? So, but this was the first GPS navigated installed car alarm system, and ADT was working on this project. The vendor they were working with was MSC. And so when ADT left, I moved over to MSC, which was one of their partners on this project, and started. And since I had been working in the call center, I helped them build a call center for themselves. And so I did that with them. They promised to continue to pay my tuition reimbursement because that was, like I said, that was a big part of my plan. So I made sure that that was in my offer letter when I signed on with them. The problem is they, let's see, they reorganized the company. And since I was helping to build their call center, they separated the company into two pieces. One was the call center, the other one was the main electronics and engineering business. And since I was no longer part of the main electronics and engineering business, um, tuition reimbursement was no longer offered for call center employees. I was like, wow, okay. So not cool, but that's how it is. Understood that. Wasn't happy with it at all. And that put a bad taste in my mouth. That let me know this was not where I wanted to be long term. I needed to move on. So I started looking, actually shifted over to the IT department back in the main center because I'd been working with the IT director on helping them build their call center image for their machines in the call center. And so we were working in partnership. And he was like, well, if they're doing that to you, why don't you just come work for me full time in the IT department? And then, we can eventually see if we can get you back on your tuition reimbursement plan. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'll think about that. I'll definitely come work for you. I'll think about whether I'm going to stay long term, but I've only got 9 months left until I get my MBA. And just the way that this was handled, I don't think I'm going to stay. But yes, I will definitely come to work for you, Chris, over in the IT department. So that was another. You gotta network. You gotta have contacts when things change, when things fall through. You have to have somebody who's willing to support you and say, "Hey, I'm gonna bring this person over because they've done quality work. They worked with me. I can vouch for them." Good. So we move on, right? So here we are. I'm at Georgia State. I'm also working at this MSC company, or which changed its name to iFleet. And I start going to career fairs because I'm like, long term, I want to be doing something else. Go to my first career fair, and I bump into a recruiter who'd been with IBM for many, many years. His name was Ron Hatcher. Rest in peace. He passed away about 8 or 9 years ago, but he was based out of RTP. Met him at the career fair, had a really good conversation with him, was sold on IBM. There was only two companies I was considering at that time. It was IBM or the CIA, one of the two. And so let's talk to Ron Hatcher. He said, man, I'm really impressed. I really like to bring you on. When are you graduating? And I said, oh, I'm not graduating for, about 9 months. He's like, oh man, well, I can't touch you. I'm only hiring, people with masters at this point. If you had your masters, I'd bring you on in a second, but I'm not. So, go away, kid. Great to meet you. Come back in 9 months. And I was like, wow, that's messed up. But okay, step back. But I was like, okay, I didn't even walk away from the table. I just walked around off to the side and I said, hey, you know, just stand here and take notes because you really want to come work for this company. And he's got a bunch of information that you need, and other people may have questions that you didn't think of. So sit here, continue to listen to every conversation and take notes. And I did that for about 15 minutes. And he didn't realize I was standing there until he, went to grab something for somebody else and said, "Oh, you're back. Did you have another question?" And I said, no, I never left. I've just been here, listening and taking notes because I figured other people might have questions that I didn't think of. And so, I really want to, work at IBM. So I'm trying to get as much information as possible. He said, man, we're at a career fair. There's 50 companies here. You're going to spend all your time here? I was like, yeah, this is where I want to be. He said, okay, wow, I'm impressed. I've never seen that. But I still can't hire you. So, go away, come back in 9 months. So I said, okay, no problem. But I didn't wait 9 months. I went back to the very next career fair. And they were held every 3 months because we were on a quarter system at Georgia State. So what I did is I went back every 3 months and I saw the same guy because he was always at the career fair. So I met with Ron Hatcher at the 6 month point. I met with Ron Hatcher again at the 3 month point, and then I met with Ron Hatcher again a couple of weeks before I was about to graduate. So we built that relationship. So by the time I came back 2 weeks before graduation, he said, "Oh my God, you again? When are you graduating? I'm tired of seeing you." I was like, "I'm graduating in 2 weeks, Ron." He said, "Oh, okay. Well, now we can talk." And for the first time, he actually went into his pocket. He pulled out his business card. He flipped it over. He wrote his secretary's name on the back. And he said, I'm giving you this card. Do not lose it. Call my secretary, Teresa, today. We are actually flying candidates out to RTP for group interviews, group testing, and there will be hiring managers present. If you go there and present yourself the way you've always presented yourself to me, you will leave there with multiple offers. I said, it's a done deal, sir. I'm almost on the plane, right? So I call, they set it up. Um, they flew about 20 of us out to RTP. The first day was all meet and greet and tours. The second day was all aptitude testing. The third day, we sat with different hiring managers in different group interviews. I left there with interviews to work in RTP, to work in New York, and to work in Alpharetta, Georgia. I was currently living in Georgia, so I picked Georgia. But that is my story of how I got into IBM back in 2000. And I've been with IBM Kyndryl ever since in different capacities. So I'll pause there to take a breath. Any questions queued up or anything?
No questions.
No
Anyone
questions.
have any questions? I'll let you keep rolling.
Okay. So we are at that middle stage, right kind of in the middle there. So now I'm working for IBM. Um, I am married at this point. I am commuting from Stone Mountain, Georgia. If you guys know, that's kind of off to the east side of the city, but commuting up to Alpharetta, Georgia. The Atlanta traffic, crazy. So hour and a half commute in the morning, although it was only 33 miles, and 2 hours in the evening to get home. So I said, okay, another problem needs to be solved, right? So we've got to pick up and we've got to move up there because I can't spend 3.5 hours a day on a commute and not be spending that time, with the family. That just doesn't make sense. So whatever we got to do, we've got to get up there. So we moved to Alpharetta, bought a larger home. Second child was born. And then it's funny that I live in Dallas right now. This is only my second visit ever to Dallas. My first visit to Dallas was back working at IBM. We were supporting a customer, GE Capital. And this was when VMware, which is virtualization technology for anyone who's not technical on the call, first came out. GE Capital was very big on, hey, we want to go this route. Do you have people that we can pay to send your people out and get trained on. And I raised my hand. Yeah, I'll go. So they flew me out to Dallas for what was supposed to be a 5-day class, Monday through Friday. We took the class from Monday through Thursday. At the end of the day, on Thursday, the gentleman said, "Hey, so this is a brand new product. We think it's the future, but this is all we have on it right now. So we've taught you everything you need to know about VMware 1.52 because that's the version that it was, and we set this up so that tomorrow, if you choose to, you can take the certification exam for free because we've taught you everything you need to know. If you're comfortable taking the exam, come back tomorrow morning. We'll have the exam proctored for you. If you're not comfortable, take the day, spend it and see Dallas. Or if you want to, just rearrange your flights and fly home. We don't have any class for you tomorrow. It's just for those who want to take the test. I raised my hand. Hey, definitely, I'll take the test. I love this. This is a great piece of software. So yeah, I'm ready to try. And they said, yeah, if you pass the test, you're certified on the spot. If not, just go to one of the local Pearson testing centers when you get home, and after you've studied some more, you can retake it. We won't pay for that, but we're offering the test now for free. So I took the test, passed the test, and my VCP number is actually 10. So I was the 10th person ever certified on VMware back in 2003. Stayed with VMware for a while. Um, Grew that into like a VMware center of competency positions and team lead positions, always working from home since about 2003, 2004. I was like, well, now that we're doing stuff that's virtual, there's no reason for us to be in the office. I'm supporting clients that are all over the country and sometimes all over the world. So there's no reason for me to be in an office. So we all got moved to, being virtual. So way before any pandemic happened, I've been virtual since 2003, 2004. And then life happens, right? So I'm out. Um, we bought this brand new house in Alpharetta. We've got the 2 kids now, and we're out in the yard playing soccer. A neighbor comes over. We're talking in the yard. We're running around. Everything's fine. And then my wife collapses, just collapses. Um, wow. Okay, what's going on? We rush over. She's having a seizure. We take her inside, call the ambulance. The neighbors take the kids, take her to the hospital. She had a brain aneurysm and never recovered. So what do you do with that, right? Everything seems like it's going exactly where you want it to go. Everything's great. You're married, you've got the kids, you've got the house, the job's working out, and then life just happens. And that really, that really shook me. That really shook me. It shook me to a personal level, career level, faith level, everything. So I ended up, and it was good because IBM was good about it and they allowed me to take a leave of absence, which I needed to do. Um, and I just had to figure out what the hell was going on in life. And it taught me that life is short and precious, to put God first, family second, and the job and everything else has to come third. I've lived my life that way ever since. Um, Started volunteering in church. Went to some local homeless shelters and started doing some college recruiting. And then eventually, God put a woman in my path. And I don't know if you guys are believers, and I am. I'm strong in faith, and I share that with everyone, not to offend anyone. But God placed a woman in my path, and like the story of Job, where he lost everything, God gave me back everything I lost, plus with blessings. And so I got married again. She adopted my 2 boys. I adopted her girl. So I lost one
Wow.
and got back 2. We had a child together. So now I have 2 daughters and 2 sons and a wife. And I kind of got back into, okay, this is what we're doing and life
Wow.
is moving forward. So I'm going to
Wow.
pause there for anybody who wants to comment or questions. 'Cause I know that was a lot. I'm dropping a lot on you guys.
Uh,
I'll just say thank you for your just sharing your story, and it's amazing. You've brought me to tears, and but I'm so thank you for being transparent in terms of just being a person of faith and just the path that you've been led down. I'm truly touched. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Okay. So, um, let's see. So, fourth child's born 2007. That's my daughter Maya, and I'll talk about her a little bit after. So I'm still with IBM. I'm working now as a IT architect on the state of Georgia account. And the way that worked is IBM started doing a lot of outsourcing to other countries, right? So I was doing VMware at the time. So what's the easiest thing to outsource? Something that's virtual. So virtualization came across and we were working from home, but they looked at it and said, numbers wise, if you guys can do it from home, anybody can do it. And so they asked us to start training people in India and Argentina on VMware on our accounts, and they would roll people onto our accounts and we would roll off and do the next account. So we would come in, we would virtualize an account, and then we would train offshore resources in the CICs to come in and take over those accounts, and we'd roll to the next account. And that was great because we were doing things that were saving the company money, and but the writing was on the wall that eventually we're going to run out of accounts, and then where do we go? What do we do? So the writing was on the wall for me, that I needed to get out of system administration and move into something that was stable here in the US, as opposed to something that could just be outsourced and I'd be out of a job. So I decided to move over and switch over into architecture. Once again, this is a contact thing. I was working with a young lady who was based out of California. She was also a VMware admin, and her husband also worked for IBM, and he was an IT architect. And he told us, hey, they're hiring in architecture. They're training new architects. So there's training money, there's education, there's a future for architects within IBM where there might not necessarily be a future in system administration here in the US. And so I made the jump to architecture. She didn't. She decided, no, I want to be more technical. I want to stay hands on. I don't want to do the documentation. I don't want to do the theory. I don't want to do all that. I'd rather work on the servers themselves. So I moved over to where her husband was in IT architecture. She stayed in system administration. A year later, they um, RA'd, because that's what IBM did, right? They RA'd a lot of the US system administrators, and she was on that RA list, but I had moved over to architecture, so I was safe. Now, she did come back on as a contractor later, so it's not all a bad story, but you just have to sometimes see the writing on the wall, see where the business is going, see where the training dollars are, see how things are moving and shaking and operating, and make a path for yourself sometimes. Sometimes you don't have to make a path for yourself. Sometimes people will reach out and pull you into where they feel you need to be, or you will be a benefit. But sometimes you have to kind of see the writing on the wall and carve your own path. So it's a little bit of both. All right. So that was what happened with me moving to the state of Georgia. And then, I'm married now, and my wife got a job offer in Florida. So I'm virtual still, even though I'm doing architecture. So I'm like, sure, let's do it. So we pick up and we move down to Florida, which I loved anyway because I went to school in Florida, always loved the beach. I love anything about the water. So you say to me, hey, we're gonna move somewhere that's coastal, I'm all there, right? So yeah, we moved down there for her to do that. While I was down there, I started getting some IBM community grants for the Tampa Bay Watch and this place called Dream Power Equestrian Therapy, where they work with horses and kids with autism and other things. So we just did a lot of volunteer work. I used to do a lot of volunteer work with IBM in Atlanta as well. And we moved there, stayed there for a few years, and then decided, you know what, we're just really not able to afford the type of home that we want and enough land like we want in Florida. It's just way too expensive. So we decided to move to North Carolina, started a marriage ministry on the side, my wife and then we're able to build a home from the ground up in North Carolina because we picked a place where prices and property was cheap enough to do everything we wanted to do that we never would have been able to do had we stayed in Florida. Um, in 2019, I was selected for the IBM Service Corps. For those who don't know, that was a program that IBM had where you had to apply like once a year. They send teams of about, maybe 20 to 30 people to a foreign country to help a nonprofit with a certain project. And so I had applied for year after year after year. Finally, I got accepted in 2019 and was all set to do a service project in Japan, which I thought was going to be amazing. And then, life kind of changed and happened again. So that didn't work, but I'll show you, I'll tell you about that in a minute. Also, my first line manager, who had been my first line manager for uh, probably 8 years at that point, decided she was finally ready to retire. And she came to the group and she said, hey, is anybody interested in management? And I said, yeah, I'm definitely interested in management. I have been for some time, but it's never really been the right time. It's never really worked out. And I said, but before I do that, I'd want to have a kind of a one-on-one, hour with you. I want you to give me the real, the good, the bad, the ugly, the reasons I should do it, the reasons I shouldn't do it, just lay it out all on the table for me. And we had that kind of relationship that she was fully ready and able to do that. She gave me all the good, she gave me all the bad. She said the best part is the people, getting to know the people, getting to work with the people, getting to help people progress in their careers, helping them get promotions and other jobs and work, in what they feel called to work in. She said the worst part, I'm going to be very honest with you, is the RAs, because when they happen, they just happen. It comes down from above. There's nothing you can do about it. You've got to scramble to try to save as many people as you can, but ultimately, you're going to lose good quality people for no reason other than numbers and budget crunches. And I listened, and she said, and you know what? I think you'd be great for the position. I'm actually not going to retire right away. I'm going to step into a part-time role, but I'm not going to be doing the management piece, but I'll still be doing some of the HR stuff in the background. So I'll be here to guide you and mentor you if you choose to walk this role. And so I was like, oh, well, you can't get any more perfect opportunity than that, right? The person who I've got an established relationship with is still going to be here to help me and guide me for at least, maybe 6 months to a year, and I already know the team that I'm working with. I know the job in and out. I've done it for years. That was just a path laid out. And so I accepted that position as a first line manager. So here we come, and pandemic happens. COVID happens. We've got plane tickets to go to Japan. We are ready to go to Japan. This is March of 2020. And then COVID, everything shuts down. No travel, no anything. Service project was canceled. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's not going to work out. But I found another, and you should always, here's a story, you should always have a stretch assignment. You should always have something you're doing outside of your regular day-to-day 9 to 5, right? So what we do here at BeKIN, what Curtis is doing, what Kiara is doing, what Malika is doing, and what all our chairs are doing, you should always have some type of extra stretch assignment that you're doing that can get you to where you want to be, that can help you make networking and contacts, that can progress you in your skills and your leadership and everything that you do. So I found through the old IBM BRG that Adobe Odili, who is now reports directly to Nella Koth, who's our Chief Transformation Officer, she was setting together the Black, Hispanic, Native American mentoring pilot, and she needed assistance. And I said, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to do the corporate service corps. So yeah, Adobe, what do you need me to do? And I jumped in. So I worked with her to set that up, and we piloted that. That went really well, but then life happens again, right? And so um, it didn't get the funding that we needed to get. So it only stayed pilot, and it never went full blown. So that's something that we're going to work on here at BeKIN, is getting a good mentoring program set up. And so we've got our professional development team working on that right now. So then it was said, okay, well, since you guys weren't able to go on your trip to Japan, we're going to do virtual assignments, because we weren't the only team that was scheduled to go. There was a few others. We're going to start doing virtual assignments. So some of us who were planning to go to Japan stayed together. We kind of kept meeting, kept doing the training that we needed to do, and we ended up doing a virtual assignment in South Africa, which turned out to be amazing. We worked with the South African Youth Association, and we set up a platform for them that is like a mini version of Your Learning. So what happens is, when the kids would come in to the youth centers, they had a full access to anything that we could give them that was not licensed, where we couldn't share it, so that they could go in and get technical training, get certifications, get anything they needed to do in order to uplift themselves and get better jobs in about 12 youth centers scattered around South Africa. So Johannesburg, Cape Town, just all the major areas where they had these big youth centers, we gave them the software that they needed to uplift their youth, which is great. And then life changed again, and the announcement was made that IBM was spinning off Kyndryl, right? So, okay, what's going to happen? Do we have a choice? Do we not have a choice? How are we going to get, how are we going to navigate this process? I was part of, GTS, Global Technology Services. So that was, we are all going. There's no choice. This is what we're going. There's no option to really stay at IBM. Just got to embrace this change and move forward. And me being a manager at that point, I just had to tell my team, it's going to be a ride, but I'm going to be there on the ride with you. We're going to get through this together. And I believe, and I still do, that it's going to end up being a better situation for us over here at Kyndryl than it was at IBM. Because IBM, how do I say this? IBMers have always been dedicated to IBM. And when I started, IBM was also dedicated to IBMers. But somewhere along this path, that changed to where they were not as dedicated to the IBMer as the IBMer was to them. So now that we're Kyndryls and we've got the Kyndryl way and we've got these, you know, models that we're looking toward, we've got these leadership behaviors, we've got fast, flat, and focus, we've got restless, empathetic, and devoted. These things are real, and we're trying to make them real and live them. So now that I'm a manager at Kyndryl, and ask anyone who's been on my team, we're really trying to implement these changes and make them stick here at Kyndryl.
And
Just
Alif,
like,
can I interrupt?
go ahead, sure.
So actually, that's a great segue to a question from Bob Fessler,
Sure.
asking about how do we ingrain these elements into the culture and most importantly, advertise and implement. And part of this came in when you were talking about, I'm scrolling because he asked a little bit ago here. Bob, can you pop in here just to sort of, because it captures some of the changes we're making here at Kyndryl in terms of being fast, flat, the Kyndryl way. But I think he was asking this along the time where you were talking about some of the smart moves you were making early on, paying attention to new technology and things like that, the learnings that you were having. How do we make these things sort of ingrained to who we are?
I will pull something up for you guys. Hold on just a second.
This story shows the power of mentorship and perseverance of a mentee. How do we ingrain these elements into the culture and most importantly, advertise and amplify? Yeah.
Okay, so let me share this. All right, so what can we as individuals do to adopt some of these behaviors? So I'm not going to read these to you, but these are out here. What I would say is you have to make it real to yourself. You have to make it real to the people that you serve, whether they are your coworkers, whether they are your direct reports, whether they are the executives above you, whether they are your customers. So how do you make these things real? For Restless, go out and earn a badge, learn more about it, promote the Kyndryl brand on social media, mentor people, be vulnerable enough to put yourself out there, ask for feedback, and then use it. A lot of people ask for feedback and then they get offended by it or they just kind of lock it away somewhere. If somebody is honest enough to give you some good feedback, take it and use it. Put it into practice. Ask for mentorship, even if it's not formal. Just I know, Curtis, one of the things that you do is you just have these conversations with people, right? You just find somebody that you think is doing something interesting, put some time on their calendar, call them up, join a kin, recruit and refer people, ask hard questions, make sure there's just lots of things we can do. And if enough of us do these things, we can get it to the point that the culture is real. We pass this tipping point and everybody starts to embrace it and live that way.
Outstanding. To everyone on call, I want to say, thank you, Alif. This was beyond amazing. And for those of you that haven't met more of your fellow BeKINs, man, I cannot tell you just how amazing the people you work with are. But just listening to Alif's story, I can tell you, you already see for yourself that he's amazing. But he's not the only one. We have some phenomenal people here in this company and in this group. Like it is, I've been one of those guys that my skill set means that I'm always going to get offers. I'm always going to get people trying to pull me someplace. And for the first time in my entire career, I'm not the oldest guy here, I guess, but for the first time, it's not, sometimes I will turn down money because I like my team, but this is the first time that I'm like, I refuse to let the people go. There's too many people that I can learn way too much from, that just as a human being, I will be 1,000 times better by learning from those who've gone before. And Alif's story, just beautiful, man. Like absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing this.
No problem.
There's I've been overproducing a video series that we'll have hopefully by the end of this week. I'll share that out with Malika. You guys get to hear some of her story.
Excellent.
Yeah, I tell you guys that the people you work with are amazing. It's an understatement. If there's any questions, please share. We have, I think, another 12-ish minutes or so. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I keep
any
talking forever,
questions?
guys, but I'd like to hear from you guys. Any questions, any insight that you want me to share or anything?
So one thing I've been doing on the side here, Leaf, is I've been sort of capturing some of your thoughts or some of the learnings from your life journey. Um, and for me personally, I've always been a nerd back before it was popular, right?
There you go.
Everyone today is a nerd, but there was a time where that wasn't popular. But I have to say, it is phenomenal looking at your journey and looking at just how smart you were playing it right from the start. I mean, uh, not just choosing what it is you want to do, but how you went about it. Okay, I'll do this. I'll pay it off. I'm going to go live like the intentionality of your life speaks to the life that you've built. Like I think that is something that I will take away from this particular meeting. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And one thing I will share too, sometimes you don't see what these inflection points of your life have been until you do this type of exercise, until you take this map and say, okay, how did I really go from here to here? What was I thinking at that time? And wow, you know what? This is the conversation that I had that was pivotal. And you start to build this and capture those things. So it's not like you can just write this down in a day. You've got to really take the time to think and look back over your career and look back over your life to make this kind of map. But I think it's an amazing exercise that everybody should do. And I'm going to share my map here in the chat. So I would encourage all of you to just take the template, erase all my stuff out of it and start working on your own.
A question from Kiara.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead, Kara.
thank you, Alif, for sharing your story. I just had a question. So, how did you stay motivated when you faced setbacks and disappointments? How did you keep yourself motivated?
Couple of things. So my personal thing is you can look at any situation and learn from it. You can either say, because I didn't have a dad in my life, I don't know how to be a dad. Or you can say, because I didn't have a dad in my life, I'm going to make sure that I'm the best dad possible for my children. And I'm going to make sure I learn everything I need to learn in order to do that. Right. So in any situation, there's two ways to go. And I just always look at a situation and say, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? How am I supposed to move forward from this? And what do I need to do to keep that, whatever it is, in a positive light and keep moving forward with it?
About that. Another question from Charles Flack.
Hey, Charles.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Alif, our paths have crossed, a little bit here and
Yep.
there in Atlanta, but I never heard your story before, and I thank you for sharing your story about your journey. Many times we don't see everything, what we all go
Right.
through to get where we are, but that makes us who we are. And I just want to thank you for being transparent, sharing your story, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I echo the same, Alif. Thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you, Sandra. Appreciate it. And I appreciate your help and support over the years. So thank you. You may not think we've talked often, but the times that we have talked, you've been inspiring to me. So thank you.
Oh, no, not at all.
All right. So this is the template for what BeKIN Steel is to be. Because as you all walk through life, you will cross thousands of people. And every person has a rich story that's made them who they are. Particularly if they're here at Kyndryl, that if you see someone in your life that is successful, the odds of them being the rich kid that was just handed something is honestly kind of slim. For someone to be where they are, to achieve what they have achieved, every single man and woman here has an impressive story. And sometimes you can't tell it unless you've kind of gone through this journey that Alif has gone through, where he's kind of looking at what were the inflection points? What made me who I am? What brought me to where I am? If you start putting time on your calendar with your colleagues, you will find this over and over and over again. When I had this idea for BeKIN Steel, I thought I'll find one or two interesting people and maybe have them share their stories. And I got 40 or 50 people in, and I met two people that had not had a chance to either reflect or grow and everyone was amazing. And I was blown away. And I was like, okay, I have to do this. This has to be a thing, right? So if you would like to share your story, we would love to have it. I think this can help feed some of our spotlights. Kiara, I'll try to pick this one up and write this up as a spotlight. Same thing for Common Thread is going to be a video series. And it was just me trying to figure out, how do I share all of these amazing people with each other? Like, you all have some incredible journeys, and you'll be amazed at how often the highs and lows of your life resonate with the people around you. And even for those times where it doesn't, I don't think most of us walk around thinking, I'm a great teacher. But when you share your life, that's precisely what you are, a phenomenal teacher. So thank you, Alif. If there's no other questions, I guess I'll give everybody 5 minutes back to grab coffee before your next thing in the day. But I hope you guys take away.
Let me share one more thing, Curtis,
Absolutely.
before I go. So, you know, as the folks on my team know, you know, I stepped into the role to be the co-chair of BeKIN, right? So that's something I've been doing as a stretch, and that was noticed in different areas. But also the work that I've done with the RFS team that I manage was noticed. And this was not me saying, hey, I want to do something different. This was my GM coming to me very recently and saying, hey, we see what you're doing. We see that you're walking and doing the Kyndryl way. We want you to come and help us in a different part of the business. So I have recently, and begrudgingly, because I really love my team, moved on from my team. I'm still kind of helping them in the background, but I've moved on from my team. I'm reporting directly to the GM now and starting up a brand new team that is going to help, you know, solution integration. So, you know, just sometimes just putting in the work, just doing what you do and doing it with your whole heart, people will notice you and they will call you up. So just as a closing, that's what I'm doing now. And I'm in a completely unfamiliar territory. I don't know this part of the business. I'm pulling I have no hair, right? But I'm pulling my hair some days, but I've got a great team around me that is showing me the ropes and being gentle and guiding me. And so I think it's going to be a success there as well.
Alif, you're beautiful, man. Thank you so much for this. This was a real treat. I'm honored to have had you as our first BeKIN Steel presenter. I look forward to many, many more of these. This was great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Have a blessed day. I appreciate you all. And reach out to me,
too.
you know, directly if you have any questions or, you know, you want to chat.
Sounds good.
Understood. Thanks.
Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Stop.
Thank you.